Here. On this wonderful morning, I would like to welcome you all. I, Abha Kumari, a research scholar in Department of Mathematics, NIT Jamshedpur, would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to represent our session chairperson of this event. Dr. Anirban Roy and Dr. Pooja Swaroop Saxena are our chairpersons for this session. Dr. Anirban Roy is an assistant professor from Department of Science and Humanities, Christ University, Bangalore. His research area include number theory, differential geometry, and various mathematical and computational techniques. He has published several research articles in internationally reputed journals and conferences in this field. He is also reviewer of several reputed international journals. Dr. Pooja Swaroop Saxena is an assistant professor in Department of Mathematics, DIT University, Dehradun. Her research area include differential geometry. She has received her doctorate degree in mathematics from NGP Rohilkhand University in 2006. She has more than 17 years of teaching experience. She has published several research papers in internationally reputed journals and conferences. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Anirban Roy and Dr. Pooja Saxena. Sir and ma'am, please proceed.
Ma'am, you want to start, ma'am? Pooja, ma'am, am I audible? Pooja, ma'am? You are mute, Pooja, ma'am. Dr. Pooja, you are mute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yes.
Please continue.
Okay, fine. So we have our first presentation is from this is by Pratibha Tyagi. The topic is projective modules over commutative Noetherian graded ring. So Pratibha Tyagi, you are here, right? You can unmute and you can switch on your camera.
Yes, sir. Good morning to all of you, first of all. And I'm here, Dr. Pratibha Tyagi from Parul University, Vadodara. So just give me a minute to share my presentation.
नेक्स्ट लोग सब छुट्टी पे चले जाएंगे तो आई वुड से कि इसी हफ्ते कर दूं तो पता है ना कहाँ करना है नहीं तो शिप्रा से पूछ रहे हैं
Excuse me, all others except the presenter, please be in mute.
हाँ उससे एक बार पूछना ठीक है
Yes, Pratibha?
I think
This is visible now.
my PPT is visible, everyone? Okay. Once again,
Yes,
good morning
yes,
to
yes.
everyone.
It's visible.
Yes, I'm going to present projective module over the commutative Noetherian gradient ring. This is my one of the topic from the PhD thesis, and presently these are the. Just give me a second. Let me go on here. These are the introduction and objective. What I have done here, there is the first. I'm giving the introduction of the projective module. What is the projective module over here? The concept of projective module is in a different area of algebra. For the reference, we can see these references as I have mentioned here, 3, 4, 6 and up to the 11. Projective module observe the apprehension of free module. Here we're talking about the when the projective module is the free. Every projective module is a free module, but every free module is not a projective module. It depends on over the ring which we have considered. That is why the converse is not true. A module over M, a non-zero unit ring is projective if and only if it's the direct sum of free module, as I have written here, the direct sum of IR. This does not intend axitomically that M itself is the direct sum of some facimiles of R. Here, I have taken the counter example to explain this. I am taking the modules set of integer, as I have mentioned here, M is equals to Z, which is the module over the ring R. If I am taking the direct sum of itself Z to Z with respect to the multiplication explained by this, it means Z direct sum of Z explained by this. If I am taking the two element A direct sum of B into X, then I can define this as A to X. Here and after, as long as a free module is noticeable, it is projective. So antithetically, it does not hold in general. So it is true nonetheless for many circumstantial classes of ring. R is the principal ideal domain ring and polynomial ring over the field. Cullen and Suslin in 1976 explained this. They mean that, for instance, choose a non-projective Z module since it is not free. Non-projective Z module, but since it is not free. Here, this is explained by the Suslin and Cullen in 1976. The next, this is the definition of the projective module. If we are considering our R module P is said to be projective, so it satisfies one of the following equivalent conditions. So we can say this is the projective module. First condition is this given if R module M and N and R linear surjective map. Alpha is the surjective map which is defined from the module R module M2, and here R module we are talking about the graded ring and the graded R module. Graded module over the ring, or we can say module over the graded ring. So here R is denoting the graded ring. So given R module M and R the linear surjective map. Here the alpha is defining the surjective map from M to N, where M and N both are the R module. So canonical map from homomorphism P to M. If we are taking the homomorphism over the ring R, P to M, P is the projective and M is the module. To the homomorphism map of P to N, it means if we are taking the homomorphism of a projective module to the module M and the homomorphism projective module to N. So here sending beta to alpha, beta is a surjective. Surjective means we are telling here this is one and on to both. That is a surjective. Second condition is if R module M and the surjective R linear map alpha says that M tends to P. If we are taking any module M and a surjective R linear map, here we are taking a map alpha, it is surjective from M to P. So there exists a R linear map such that gamma P to M ki alpha gamma is equals to 1P. It means it is the unit in the projective. Third point, we can show to see that it is a projective module or not. If there exists an R module Q such that we are taking, it means there exists a R module such that we are taking the direct sum of projective and the Q. It is isomorphism to the n-dimensional R for some positive integer n R. So we can speak sum of Q equivalent to Rn is free. Every projective module is a free, but every free module is not a projective. What is the definition of a free module for a ring R? If I will explain what is the free module. Free module here we are talking about the linear independent and talking about a span. If we are having any ring R and R module M, so set E, if we are taking, let it be there is the subset of a module. So E, I am taking E subset of M. So E is a generating set for M. That is to say, every element of M is to be sum of element of E multiplied by the collection of R. So E is the linearly independent for every subset and the distinct element of E. So we can say about the linearly independent. This is the free module. This is the definition of free module. If one of the condition we can satisfy, so then we can say this is the projective module. There is the example, if I talk about the R is a ring with identity, then every free R module is a projective module. Second example, which Cullen and Suslin in 1976 has proved that this is the non-free projective module. If we are taking the Z2 and Z3, it means the ring quotient by 2Z and the ring quotient by 3Z. When we will take in the LCM, here we're talking about the least common multiplier 2 and 3. This is 6. So this is not free, but this is the projective module. Now here is my main objective. First lemma which I have proved here. This is about the exactly we are taking the secondary representation of the projective module over the graded Noetherian ring. What is the graded Noetherian ring? It follows strictly the ascending chain condition. And the lemma is let E be a primary graded ideal of R here and P be a projective R module. Then 0 says that P to E. If non-zero is P secondary. Here I have proved here. If I have taken the one element of the ring R and that element belongs to the P, where P is the primary graded ideal. Primary graded ideal means as simple if I explain you the prime ideal, if we are taking the two elements, either it belongs to, suppose A and B, either A belongs to this and B belongs to this. Prime number, if in simple language I'll explain to, the person will get to know that prime number can be written in the multiplication of 1 and 2 itself. Suppose 2 into 1. So this is the same here. To understand the primary graded ideal, if we'll go in the polynomial ring. So this is R belongs to P. If I'm taking the direct sum, which is R belongs to E for some positive integer n, such that direct sum of R annihilates. What is the annihilator? Annihilates means we are talking about the annihilator. Annihilator, I'll give the explanation. Suppose we are having a ring R and module M. So we are taking the subset of a module S such that we are annihilating that subset over the ring R. One element we are taking of the ring and the one element we are taking of the subset of a module. If their product is 0, so we will say that is the annihilator of the subset of a module. So here this annihilates 0 to P, and other hand we can say if R does not belong to P, so we can see that 0 says that P to E, A0 says that P to E. As follow, here we have taken the element T belongs to 0 to P using to denote the natural homomorphism. R to RE, natural homomorphism means R to RE, R is quotient by E. There is a homomorphism F such that projective module P to R by Q, where Q we have taken as the primary graded, other primary graded ideal. If we quotient a ring to a primary graded ideal and we are taking the homomorphism from P to R by Q. So there exists a 1 FC bar is to CT for all such that C bar belongs to R by T. Now here I have explained the diagram. This is the exact flow. It can be completed with the homomorphism. So P, there is the map from P to RE, it is H. Second map from P to RE, it is F. Then R quotient by E to R quotient by E to 0. Here actually we are talking about the exact sequence. What is the exact sequence? When it is reaching up to the 0, exact sequence means if we are taking the image of a, suppose this is R, if I am taking image of H, it should be equals to the kernel of G. This is the exact sequence. It is reaching up to the 0. But here we are explaining about the homomorphism of H, P to RE, which make the extended diagram commute. So T, if we define this, T is F1 bar, it is HR1 bar and RH1 bar. So H1 bar belongs to this 0 P to E. So we have 0 P to E is R0 to E. Thus result is this. This is the result. Now the second lemma, we are considering the graded ideal. R1, R2 to Rn be a graded ideal of R and P a projective module. So we are taking the sum of 0 to P Ri, where 0 to P intersection of Ri means graded ideals. So here we have considered the one element which is belongs to 0 ideal P, 0 to P, 0 ideal over the projective module and intersection of I12 and Ri. Here we are defining a map pi R to R. R is quotient by the intersection of Ri. For each I is equals to 1 to n. The map is defined pi I is equals to R to R. It means if we are taking R is quotient by the Ri, where Ri is the graded ideal. This is the natural homomorphism. And this monomorphism we can define by the other theta is R quotient by intersection of Ri is defined the direct sum of I1 to n to R upon Ri. This we can define like this also. So for which if we are taking theta pi r, this is pi 1 r, pi 2 r up to pi n r. So for all graded ideals belongs to the ring there is a homomorphism. Psi says that P tends to R, quotient by intersection I wants to and Ri, for which phi PR is equals to RTN. For R belongs to R is P is projective. So we may extended the diagram here. This is the diagram. Psi is the mapping from P to R, quotient by intersection of the graded ideal Ri. Then graded ideal, the theta map is defined from the graded ideal to the direct sum of the R quotient by the Ri. So P is defined to R quotient by the intersection of Ri, and the phi map is defined to projective module, the direct sum of R quotient by Ri. So when we will define the map theta between the R quotient by intersection of Ri, so the map will be defined. This is the direct sum of R quotient by the graded module. Then it goes to the zero again in the exact sequence as I already explained. So here the homomorphism phi, which I have told you. So it is clear that the image of phi subset of the sum of 0 to Pri. So it follows that if we are taking 0 to P, intersection of Ri will be the subset of sum of this 0 to P Ri. Since the reverse inclusion is clear, that result is this. Next is the theorem which I have done in this paper. Assume that R is a graded ring. As already in paper we have taken R is a graded ring, M is the module and P is the projective module. R is a graded ring which is denoted by associative R. So set of prime graded ideals of R which belongs to the zero graded ideal for primary decomposition. Zero graded ideal which I have taken earlier in the lemma 1 and lemma 2. P is a projective R module. Then P has a secondary representation, and attached prime ideal subset of the associated prime ideal of ring R. A double T is showing the attached prime ideal and A double S is showing the association. So more precisely,
ma'am, Pratibha ma'am.
yes, yes.
Yeah, we have already exceeded the 12 minutes time. We are now the 3 minutes question.
Okay, sir. Okay, sorry, this is my result. May I have explained you what I have done is there. This is my result only, but I am explaining the statement, what I have done. Can I?
Yeah, please, you have one more minute to conclude.
But I'm explaining the statement only. What we are doing here, we are taking the zero ideal, which we can be writing in the intersection form. This is called the primary decomposition. And the next I have done here, the main theorem is this: कि projective module P over the ring R is indecomposable if and only if P is equivalent to the PR quotient by I. This is the and the next theorem. R is the graded Noetherian ring. The three points we have proved here. Direct sum of a family of R module is projective if and only the sum is projective. There is a bijective correspondence between the graded prime ideal of R and isomorphism type. Non-bijective means where 1, 1 and 2, 2. Indecomposable in projective R module given by this P R quotient by primary ideal equivalent to P. Every projective R module can be expressed essentially uniquely as the direct sum of indecomposable projective R module. And this is the proof as well. These are the references which I have used. Thank you. Sorry to take the more time.
Thank you very much. We'll have a session now for questions.
Thank you. Okay,
Any questions, please?
Yeah, Pratibha.
Anyone having any
Can I
questions?
ask a question?
Thank you, ma'am.
Can you explain some non-free projective module? Can you give some example of non-free projective?
A non-free projective module, man, when we are taking the sum rings, just if we are taking the primary integral domain, in primary integral, if we are having the primary integral domain ring, then that will be the non-free. That will be the non-free projective module. As I mentioned the example also, Z2, Z3. So Z2, Z3, when we were taking the LCM, we will get the Z6. So that can't be written in the that linear independence way. So that is a non-free projective module. Any question?
Yeah, I have one question or clarification. You say?
Sir is asking something.
Yeah, I want to know that you have mentioned that graded Noetherian ring, right?
Yes, sir.
That Noetherian ring, why Noetherian ring? Because Noetherian ring is not seen in the, So what is the contribution of the ring to be Noetherian here?
Actually, sir, graded ring, we are taking the direct sum of subgroup over the abelian group. Then Noetherian means if the graded ring is following the ascending chain condition, there is the sum rule, left R module and the right R module. We can write down the modules, graded modules can be the ascending order, like I1 is subset of I2 is subset. So when a graded ring follow this condition strictly, that is called the Noetherian graded ring. In this paper, what I have done already, the graded ring work has been done. So I have done over the graded Noetherian ring. What kind of result we will get? It will be indecomposable or not? Am I clear to make you understand?
Yeah. It makes sense.
Sir, any suggestion need to add in this? Any suggestion need to add in this?
It would be nice, but since we have run short of time now, we have exceeded the time. So maybe for the time being, we'll say thank you to you.
Okay, thanks to all of you.
Thank you,
Pratibha. Okay, bye.
So our next.
So the next presenter is, I think, Amarjeet Kaur.
Yes, ma'am. Present, ma'am. Just a second, I'm sharing.
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah,
To
you
both
are
of you?
audible. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it visible to you both, ma'am?
Yeah, it's coming. Yes.
Sir, good morning. Myself, Vishnu Narayan Misra, available here.
Sir, is
Okay,
it?
sir.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Sir, is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
visible.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good morning to the session chair and everyone present. Myself, Amarjeet Kaur, research scholar, MIT University, Noida. The title of my presentation today is on fuzzy pseudo-projective as generalization of fuzzy projective modules. I am doing this under the guidance of Dr. Jayanti Tripathi, AIAS Department, MIT University. My co-guides are Dr. Ratnesh Kumar Mishra, NIT Jamshedpur, Professor Vinay Kumar, ex-Dean WIPS, GGS IP University. The flow of my presentation today is I will first talk about the abstract motivation of the study, basic definition, and then I will discuss the proposed lemmas and theorems which I have proposed in the paper. I will support it with the appropriate examples and then we'll conclude with the references, ma'am and sir. To talk about the abstract, my objective of this paper is to study the fuzzy pseudo-projective modules as a generalization of fuzzy projective modules. Here, sir and ma'am, we have I have studied the important results regarding fuzzy pseudo-projective modules, and I have also discussed the very important equivalent condition while I end the paper, which talks about the equivalence of fuzzy projective and fuzzy pseudo-projective modules over the semi-simple ring. And then apart from all the various motivations which are mentioned in the paper, I'm mentioning and highlighting very few here. The motivation and the uses of this study is this study can further be used in the global dimension of a ring, global dimension of a semi-simple ring, characterize global dimension in projective, injective dimension of fuzzy modules. Global dimension can be extended from rings to internally graded ring uses this study. Also, I should mention that this study can be used as a catalyst to study the fuzzy modules over semi-simple Lie algebras. And this can be used as a very vital thing in many of the areas of mathematics. To talk about and start with the presentation, the very first definition I will discuss is the fuzzy module. For the fuzzy subset mu, let mu be a fuzzy subset over the set, say M, then it is called as fuzzy submodule if it satisfies these four conditions. I will quickly read out all of them. If mu of the sum of two elements, that is M or N, it is greater than or equal to minimum mu M and mu N. Similarly, the second condition where mu on the product of the two elements is greater than or equal to mu of M. Mu of minus x is equals to mu x and mu of 0 is equals to 1. So if these are the four conditions which are satisfied, then we call this the mapping mu as fuzzy module. I have supported this with an example also. I have constructed this example on the set, say Q root 2, which I have denoted with capital M. Then let there be a mapping from, say, suppose mu from q root 2 to 0, 1, which I have defined like this as 1, 0.5, and 0.33. This map, sir and ma'am, this map satisfy all the 4 conditions which are mentioned in the previous slide. That is why we can call this mu as fuzzy submodule. Going further to the fuzzy projective module, which is the basis of my paper, I will take the help of this diagram to make you understand very quickly what do I mean by fuzzy projective module. This mapping mu p is known as fuzzy projective module if there is a surjective homomorphism f bar that is mentioned in the diagram. If this map exists from the mu a to mu b, surjective homomorphism, and there is a map G bar from mu p to mu b, then there exists a morphism, R homomorphism H bar from mu p to mu a, such that this diagram commutes. What do I mean by commute? Commute means that the composition of F bar and H bar is equals to G bar. I mean, I hope I can make you understand very clearly that this F bar composite with this H bar is equals to G bar. This I mean by the composite of this diagram. After that, talking about the fuzzy exact and fuzzy split sequences, which are again the important definitions in my paper. The sequence which is mentioned mu n minus 1, mu n, and mu n plus 1 are said to be is called as fuzzy exact sequence if the image of fn minus 1 is equals to kernel of fn. That is the basis of fuzzy exact sequence. And when do I call the sequence as or the mapping as fuzzy split? If there is, suppose I am taking an example with the help of a map, say alpha bar. If alpha bar is a map from mu to n, then there should, if there exists a map, say suppose beta bar from in the reverse direction, that is neta to mu, and their product is equals to 1, then the map is alpha bar is called as fuzzy split. If there exists an invertible map also. After that, fuzzy pseudo-projective. Now, I would like to draw your attention to this pseudo-projective because this is the basis of the paper, that what is the basic difference between fuzzy projective and fuzzy pseudo-projective. With the help of the diagram, again, I would like to explain this definition, that if you can see this diagram, in this diagram, the only difference between fuzzy projective and fuzzy pseudo-projective is that the mappings G bar and F bar, I hope you can see my cursor also, F bar and G bar, they both are surjective homomorphism. That is the only point of difference between fuzzy projective and fuzzy pseudo-projective. Because in fuzzy projective, there is only this G bar was surjective homomorphism, but here the both maps G bar and F bar both are surjective homomorphism, and there exists a H bar such that this diagram commutes. So this is the only difference between fuzzy pseudo-projective and fuzzy projective modules. This I have supported this definition of fuzzy pseudo-projective with this example. I've constructed this example. Because of the paucity of time, I'm skipping this explanation here and going straight away to the proposed lemmas and theorems of fuzzy projective modules, which I have mentioned in the paper. Out of all the theorems and lemmas, I have mentioned few of them, which has a little small proof so that I can be in the time limit. The very first one is lemma 1, which talks about this mapping, which you can see on my cursor, that that this neta bar mu p and nu q is equals to 0. This equation, this sequence splits only if the direct sum between mu p and nu q is fuzzy pseudo-projective. So where this mu p is fuzzy projective and nu q is fuzzy pseudo-projective. So my first lemma says that the splitting of this sequence. So for this, we have first assumed that direct sum of mu and neta is fuzzy pseudo-projective, and we have defined two surjective homomorphism, alpha bar and beta bar, which we have defined like this. And now going further to this definition, I need to show that this diagram commutes. And for that, I need to show, as per my definition, which I have explained earlier, that for commutativity, I need to show that beta bar composite of theta bar should be equal to alpha bar. Now, for this, I have constructed a mapping lambda bar dash from mu to mu as this. So to show it split, I need to show that lambda bar and lambda bar dash should be equal to 1 as per the definition of fuzzy split. So what do I need to do? I have just taken an element, say suppose new q from this map lambda dash, and by the definition of lambda bar dash I have written this, and then by the definition of lambda bar this is alpha bar, and since this diagram commutes, that we have written alpha bar is equals to theta bar and beta bar. This is equals to nu q. Now, if you can see, please, that in the RHS also we have obtained nu q. So lambda bar and lambda bar dash is equals to 1. So that implies that the equation splits. Moving further to the theorem 2 and theorem 4, I'm skipping, they have the little bit long proof, so I'm skipping the proof of these two things here, but I'm just mentioning quickly the statements which are mentioned on the screen also. So theorem 2 says that if mu is a direct sum of the submodules mu I, then mu is said to be fuzzy pseudo projective if each of them is fuzzy pseudo projective. So I have proved this in the paper also. And then the corollary of the same theorem is that if mu p is a fuzzy pseudo projective module and there is a map lambda bar from mu p to nu q, then be any surjective homomorphism, then mu q is fuzzy pseudo projective if and only if their direct sum is fuzzy pseudo projective. So this is a corollary. These two are the corollaries of theorem 2, which I have discussed in the paper, out of which I am discussing the proof of corollary 5 here because it is a little bit small than that of corollary 4. So corollary 5 states that the sufficient condition of the surjective homomorphism lambda bar is mu p to mu q is said to be invertible if the direct sum between the domain and the codomain is fuzzy pseudo projective. So to prove that, I have first assumed that mu p direct sum mu q is fuzzy pseudo projective and lambda bar is projective. Then then we can very well there is a proper lemma which is mentioned in my paper that we can very well construct this fuzzy exact sequence that 0 goes to lambda kernel of lambda bar mu p to nu q is equals to 0. Then this equation placed by the first lemma which I have discussed here also in my presentation. This lemma, this sequence splits because of that lemma, and because of which we can say that lambda bar is invertible. Then moving quickly to the lemma 7, I'm skipping the remark 6 so that we can just be in the time limits. I can just be in the time limits. So lemma 7 is if the homomorphism, if there is a homomorphism alpha bar from mu A to mu B is injective, then f bar of mu A is a direct sum of mu B if and only if for any fuzzy module mu C and the two fuzzy module homomorphism phi bar and phi bar dash such that this diagram, I hope you can see, this diagram commutes. So if I need to show that this diagram commutes, that means I need to show that alpha bar star f bar should be equal to, sorry, not alpha bar ma'am, phi bar star f bar should be equal to phi bar. So I need to show this. So if I need to show this, I have considered phi bar star composite of f bar is equals to this. I have defined this over the element mu ax, which is the one element of this fuzzy module mu a. And since by the definition of phi bar, which phi bar star, which I have defined here, as you can see my cursor, we have written that phi bar star is equals to phi bar f. This is the definition of phi bar star. We can just take this f that is f bar minus f bar, that is 1. So it is phi bar, that means that this diagram commutes, that f bar star f bar is equals to phi bar. So this means that the diagram is commutative. To quickly conclude the presentation, I am just talking about the last two theorems which are mentioned in my paper. They states that the fuzzy projective and the fuzzy injective modules have to be are equivalent on a semi-simple ring. So this is the major result, one of the major results of my paper, that if we have any semi-simple ring, then fuzzy projective and fuzzy pseudo-projective modules become equivalent. So this I have also explained in the paper, and these are the references. Thank you. So
Thank
this
you.
is all about my presentation, sir. And
Any questions from anyone, please? We have time here.
Yes, one question I just want to ask Amarji.
yes, ma'am.
You have shown in your first slide that fuzzy modules can be used in differential geometry also. Can you explain how you can use?
No, ma'am. Right now, I have just mentioned it as a future scope of this because I am not much into it right now. But somewhere I have written I've read one theorem about it, so I have mentioned in the paper. I'm not very much aware of this right now.
Okay.
I will
fine.
surely look into this.
So I also have one question on this. I don't remember exactly, but there is some work on submanifolds and manifolds.
Okay, sir.
Precisely on Minkowski's or Minkowski pseudospace and all there.
Yes.
There are
Okay.
some fuzzy models I think I have observed there. So
Okay, sir.
you
I'm
have
noting it
any
down.
plans? You have any plans to connect it, or is it your research topic, or can you just elaborate a little bit about it?
Sir, my research topic, which I am researching it on, is fuzzy projective modules. I have just connected that topic with many of its structures, which are close by the fuzzy projective modules. So basically, right now I have taken down the suggestions from your end that I can very well connect my study with the topics which you have mentioned. But right now, in my thesis, I have mentioned all the substructures and structures which are close by to the fuzzy projective modules.
Fine.
Okay, fine.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions from anyone
Very
else?
nice presentation, Amarji.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry.
Very nice presentation.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Madam, can I present my work because something there is a meeting. I am head of department, so Dean called me for meeting. So myself, Vishnu Narayan Misra, interested to present paper here.
Okay, sir. I think it's okay.
Okay, ma'am. Can I
Okay,
just?
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you. So the next presenter is Vishnu
Yes,
Narayan.
madam.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you to all the esteemed members of this conference on International Academy of Physical Sciences. Here I am presenting my paper here. Myself Vishnu Narayan Misra, working as Professor and Head of Department of Mathematics, Indira Gandhi National Tribal University, Amarkantak, Madhya Pradesh. And here in this presentation we will discuss some preliminary and quantitative approximation, that is quantitative means of asymptotic formula, quantitative Gross-Voronozhkaya type asymptotic theorem, and then we discuss the graphical and the numerical analysis, and then we conclude our result here. There are following properties will be discussed in this article for the operator defined by Agratini, that is Octavian Agratini, Caltech University Series Mathematics and Informatics, that is published in 1999. And then we hear that is approximating the higher order polynomial curves and surfaces with the low order ones plays an important role in data compressions, data transmission, and the data exchange, etc. A geometric modeling tasks approximation theory basically deal with approximation of functions by simpler functions or more easily calculated functions. Broadly, it is divided into theoretical
Excuse
and
me, Dr. Vishnu
constructive
Narayan.
approximation.
Can you please switch on your camera? Excuse me, Dr. Vishnu Narayan. Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Can you please turn on the camera? We are not able to see you.
I am presenting in my mobile device, so if I use the camera, then only one thing appear here because it is in mobile device sharing screen. If I stop my sharing screen, and then video will appear.
Okay, continue.
Okay, because I am presenting my paper here in my mobile device. So if I stop my screen, then I will appear in camera. So
Okay, please continue, sir.
approximation. Okay, sir. Approximation theory basically deal with the approximation of functions by simpler functions or more easily calculated functions. Broadly, it is divided into theoretical and constructive approximation. Computer-aided geometric design, that is CAGD, is a discipline which deals with the computation aspect of geometric objects. And there are Bezier curves also. Degree reduction can be summarized into two categories. The first category is based on the base function conversion. And in 1999, Octavian Agratini contributed some significant research work in the theory of approximation by considering the linear positive operators proposed by Lupus, which are given by this operator equation 1.1. This is Lupus operator, which with the identity that is 1 minus a whole to the power alpha is equal to this expression, where the function f from 0 infinity to r, and the notation alpha k is given by alpha 0 is equal to 1, alpha k is equal to alpha plus 1 plus 1 support plus alpha plus k minus 1, and k greater or equal to 1. In the reference 2, that is, the author proposed the operators by considering alpha is equal to 1 upon 2 such a way that the said operators ln preserve x, and hence constructed operators are as follows, that is equation 1.2, by putting alpha is equal to 1 upon 2 here. And the above proposed operators LMN are similar to Jasch-Merizian operators. Several approximation properties of the above proposed operators have been determined. In addition of that, an asymptotic formula and the rate of convergence are established, as well as using the probabilistic method. This sequence of linear positive operators is re-obtained in 2. To obtain an approximation in the space of integrable functions, the author constructed a new modification of the operator LMN into Kantorovich form, which are as follows, this equation 1.3. And it can be defined in the space, that is C gamma 0 infinity is equal to collection of all functions f belonging to C 0 infinity, so that absolute of this function mod ft is bounded by e to the power bt, where b greater than 0, m greater than 0, and t greater or equal to 0. And let us suppose the function that is ei is equal to t to the power I, where I varies from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Then we have the following results using this function. For all x greater or equal to 0 and n belongs to capital N, we have an e0 x is equal to 1, an e1 x is equal to this much, an e2 x is equal to this much, an e3 x is equal to this much, and an e4 x is equal to this thing. Considering delta nm x is equal to an t to the t minus x whole to the power m x, where m is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and thus we have the lemma 2.2. That is, for all x belongs to 0 infinity and n belongs to capital N, it gives these four values, that is delta n1x, delta n2x, delta n3x, delta n4x is equal to this much. And this is the proof of this lemma, and let us consider lemma 2.3. For all x greater or equal to 0 and n belongs to capital N, the following result hold good, that is limit n tending to infinity n delta n1x is equal to 1 upon 2, and limit n tending to infinity n delta n2x is equal to 2x. Similarly, second order, that is n square delta n4x is equal to 12x square. And this is the other theorem, that is let f belong to C gamma 0 infinity and n belongs to capital N. Then for each x belongs to 0 infinity, we have a and fx converges to fx as n tending to infinity uniformly on the compact interval of 0 infinity. And this is the proof of this theorem. And this is next theorem. Let x belongs to 0 infinity and for all n belongs to capital N. Suppose the function f and its first derivative and the second derivative belongs to C gamma 0 infinity. Then we have result of this. Limit n tending to infinity n a n fx minus fx is equal to this much. In order to determine the approximation properties for the proposed operators in weighted space, we have some functions, classes, which are defined as this below. That is b2 0 infinity is equal to this much, and c2 0 infinity is given by this much. Norm is defined as supremum of mod fx upon 1 plus x square. c2 star 0 infinity is given by this much. Several interesting properties of operators have been determined using weighted spaces. Some contributions in this direction can be seen in reference 9. And this is the weighted modulus of continuity defined by equation 3.1. This is the other lemma defined on weighted modulus of continuity. For f belonging to C2 star 0 infinity, for every x belongs to 0 infinity, we have the following result. These three results hold good. And based upon this lemma, we have this theorem, next theorem, that is 3.2. We will show the quantitative means of Voronozh-Kraja type asymptotic formula. F element of C2 star 0 infinity, and for which first derivative and second derivative belonging to C2 star 0 infinity, and x and t belongs to 0 infinity, we have the following result. This is the result where capital O1, that is big order. This can be written as less or equal to C times of this, where C denotes absolute positive constant, not necessarily the same at each occurrence. And this subsection deals with the Grass-Voronozh-Kraja type theorem, which concerns with the non-multiplicativity of operators A and Fx. And motivated by such works, the proposed Grass-Voronozh-Kraja type asymptotic formula is given by theorem 3.3. It states that let UV belongs to C2 star 0 infinity, and such a way that U dash V dash U double dash V double dash belongs to C2 star 0 infinity. We have the result, that is limit n tending to infinity n an of this minus an ux an vx is equal to 2x u dash v dash. This is the example, that is the approach of operators A and Fx for n is equal to thus 10, 50, 100, 200 towards the function f is equal to x cube minus 3x square minus 6, which is defined as blue sign, and shown by graphic equation, that is figure 4.1. We can observe that it's a approximation of function by the said operators for different values, which are represented by green, cyan, purple, red respectively. That is the convergence of operator to the function fx, blue sign. As iteration increases, convergence is faster. Similarly, example 4.2. Here we consider n is equal to 50, 100, 200, 300 of the operator A and Fx for the convergence of proposed operators to the function f is equal to x cube e to the power x minus 2x blue. This is in blue, which is illustrated by the figure 4.2, and one can justify the approximation of the function this. This is the figure 4.2. It shows that convergence of the operator A and Fx to the function fx by blue sign. And this is the third example and table also. For n is equal to 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, we determine the absolute numerical errors by the operators A and Fx to the function f is equal to 2x square plus 1 x is e to the power x, which is illustrated by the given table 1. It can be observed that as we increase the value of n, the error between operators and functions is decreased. As we increase the value of n, the error between operators and the function is decreased. So best approximation, we can get best approximation. Approximation is good for the large values of n, and this is the table 1, which denotes that is absolute numerical errors of the operators A and Fx to the function fx. X is this. And in the present manuscript, we obtained the asymptotic formula for the proposed operators, and furthermore its quantitative means. The Grass-Voronozh-Kraja type asymptotic theorem have also been established here. At last, graphical and numerical analysis for the convergence of operators have been presented here. And these are the references which we have taken to prepare this manuscript. These are the references. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you all for listening me.
Thank you, sir. Participants, any questions here, please? Any questions from any participants?
Yes, sir. I have stopped my share screen, so video is coming now.
Okay, sir. In your example 4. I have a clarification here. In your example 4.3, can you please show the graph for example 4.3? The graphical representation of example 4.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Which example?
4.2, the last one. I missed the graphical representation of that. So, yeah,
Yes,
this
sir.
example. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Because we have already taken here for n is equal to 50, 100, 200, 300. So, yes, sir. We have skipped here. Figure missing here. Figure not here.
Okay.
Example.
Okay. And sir,
But that
sir,
is,
okay, okay, that's
yes,
fine.
yes.
Sir, you
If
mentioned
we
that
put,
in
sir,
this, sir,
yes,
you
sir.
mentioned that in this manuscript you have given the asymptotic formula of this. What is that asymptotic formula here, sir, in this work?
Asymptotic formula means it limit and tending to infinity of n time this type of result. That is n times of operator an u vx minus an ux an vx. And since it is of the form infinity into something is equal to this finite, that is bounded. It is bounded by this thing. So this type of result is called as asymptotic formula for the given operator. Since Voronozh-Kaja has determined this type of formula, so this is called as Voronozh-Kaja asymptotic formula for the operators. That is, they said that limit n tending to infinity n into that operator difference, the function is bounded by something that is bounded by first derivative, second derivative, etc. Like as Voronozh-Kaja asymptotic formula of Bastine operator, limit n tending to infinity n into bn fx minus fx is equal to f dash x plus f double dash x upon 2. This
Fine,
type of result.
Fine. Any other questions from anyone?
Sir, which numerical method you have used in calculating the numerical errors in your examples?
Simple. This is the norm. You determine norm convergence. Function analysis, the basic result, that is norm convergence. We have determined here norm f is equal to supremum of mod fx upon 1 plus x square. Okay.
Okay.
Norm
Fine
convergence.
then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Thank you
question?
very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I am very much thankful to the chairman, sir, who gave me the chance to interact with you all. Thank you.
Dr. Pooja, we'll move to next candidate.
Yes, sure, sir. So next
Yeah.
candidate is Diamond, I think.
Hello, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. No,
Okay. Start your
I will
presentation.
share my screen. Yes, ma'am. Is my screen visible?
Not yet.
Hello? Yeah. Okay. A very good morning, everyone. My name is Diamond Kharkongwar, and I am a research scholar in the Department of Mathematics, Northeastern Hill University. And the topic which I am going to present today is clean graphs of finite commutative rings. These are the outlines. I have the introduction, the main results, and also the references. So we're just going to start with the introduction. We are just going to see at some basic definitions which we will use later on in the paper. So that R be a ring with unity, an element E belong to R is called an idempotent if E square equal to E. Clearly, 0 and 1 are the idempotents of a ring R, and in fact, they are called the trivial idempotents. If E is an idempotent, then obviously 1 minus E is also an idempotent of R. And if R is a local ring, then R has no non-trivial idempotent. And if R is a non-local ring, then R will always have at least 2 non-trivial idempotents. In this paper, we have denoted IDR for the set of idempotents, IDR star for the set of non-trivial idempotents, IDR prime is the set of non-zero idempotents, UR is a set of units, U prime R is a set of self-inverse units, and U double prime R is a set of units which are not self-inverse in R. The clean graph of a ring R, which is denoted by CLR, was first introduced by Habibi et al. In 5, and it is a graph whose vertices are in the form of tuples like E, U, where E is an idempotent element and U is a unit of R. And two distinct vertices, EU and FV, are adjacent if and only if EF equal to FE equal to 0 or UV equal to VU equal to 1. The authors introduced two induced subgraph CL1 of R with vertices 0, U, where obviously U is a unit, and CL2 of R with vertices E, U, where E is a non-zero idempotent and U is a unit. Now, since CL1R is a complete graph, that means it's complete. All the vertices have an edge between themselves. So therefore, the study of CL1R is not interesting. Therefore, they have focused the study of the subgraph CL2R. Now, we're just going to look at some graph theoretic definitions, which we are going to use in this article. The eccentricity of U is the distance from U to a vertex V which is farthest from U, and the radius which is given by rad of G. It is the minimum of the eccentricities. The center is a subgraph induced by the set of vertices of minimum eccentricity, and a graph G is said to be self-centered if the center of G is G itself. A vertex cut is a subset X of VG such that G minus X is disconnected, and the cardinality of the minimum vertex cut is also called as the vertex connectivity and is often denoted by kappa of G. An edge cut is a subset Y of EG such that G minus Y is disconnected, and the cardinality of the minimum edge cut is called the edge connectivity of a graph G and is denoted by lambda of G. A graph G is called Eulerian if it contains a circuit that contains every edge of G, and it is Hamiltonian if it contains a cycle that contains every vertex of G. And a graph is said to be planar if it can be embedded on the plane. Now this is just an example for Z6, like the idempotent for Z6 are 1, 3, and 4, and the units are 1 and 5 only. So now like 1 and 1 into 1 is 1, so therefore there's an edge between them, and even 1 and 1 is again 1, so there's an edge between them, and 3, 4 is 12, which is 0 modulo 6, so there is an edge between them. Similarly, there's an edge between these two vertices, and even there is an edge between these two vertices and these two vertices. Again, 5 and 5 is 25, which is 1 modulo 6. So there is an edge, and even this also there is an edge between them. So this is how we obtain the CL2 of Z6. This is the graph for Z10, and this is the graph for Z12. We can just draw in the same manner as I have done in like Z6. So these are the results which we have obtained. If EU is a vertex in CL2R, then the degree of EU is OE into cardinality of units of R plus the cardinality of idempotence of R minus OE minus 2. If US belong to the U prime R, that means U is self-inversed and is given by this OE into cardinality of UR plus cardinality of idempotent of R minus OE minus 1 if U is not self-inverse, where OE is equal to F is equal to the cardinality of the set. That means all the F belonging to IDR star such that EF equal to FE equal to 0. So obviously if we take as O1, then it always come to 0. So if R is a ring such that the cardinality of UR is greater than 1 and CL2 is connected, then the center of CL2 of R is a subgraph induced by EU, where E belongs to the idempotent of R star and U is the unit. And let R be a ring such that cardinality of R is equal to 1, then and CL2R is connected, then CL2R is self-centered. And if we have a ring R, and if cardinality of UR is greater than 1, then the eccentricity, this is a notation of eccentricity, we should not confuse with this E, this is an idempotent element. So the eccentricity of EU is equal to 2 for all EU belonging to the vertex of Cl2R, such that E is not equal to 1. And the eccentricity of 1 comma U is equal to 3. If if the cardinality of UR is greater than 1, then the radius is always equal to 2. Let R be a commutative ring, then the girth is 3 or infinity. And let R be a ring, and if suppose we write R in this form, where each Ri is a local ring, then we obtain that the kappa of Cl2R is equal to lambda Cl2R is equal to delta of Cl2R, where this delta is actually a minimum degree of the graph. Let R be any commutative Artinian ring with n distinct maximal ideals, then we also get the same result. Let R be a ring and n be a natural number, and if R is isomorphic to R1 cross R2 cross Rn, where Ri is a local ring, then Cl2R is not Eulerian. And let R be a ring and n be a natural number if R is isomorphic to R1 cross R2 cross Rn, where each Ri is a local ring, then Cl2R is Hamiltonian. And let R be a commutative Artinian ring with n distinct maximal ideals, then Cl2R is Hamiltonian. So we also show that actually this graph Cl2R is planar if and only if R is a local ring or the cardinality of units of R is less or equal to 2. In order to show that Cl2R is planar, we have make in use of this theorem, which is known as Kuratowski theorem, which says that a graph is planar if and only if it does not contain K5 or K33 or any subdivision which is homeomorphic to K5 or K33, where K5 is actually a complete subgraph of 5 vertices and K33 is a bipartite graph like 3 with 6 vertices. And these are the references. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Diamond. Yes, ma'am. Continue.
Is there any question from anyone that you can ask? Yes, Diamond, you are talking about commutative Artinian ring. Can you explain what is Artinian ring?
Yes, ma'am. A commutative Artinian ring, it means that it follows the descending chains. Like we have like ideals, no? Then I1 is contained, I2 is contained, and it ends to In.
Ring is called Artinian ring.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have mentioned somewhere something called eccentricity of the graph,
Yeah.
right, in the beginning
Yes.
of that.
Yes, sir.
I just want to know about it. What is that? I had a doubt. Can you? Is it possible to see that slide once again?
Yes, sir. Eccentricity, no? I'll just present my screen again.
Sure, sure.
Yes, sir. This, you mean the definition of eccentricity, sir?
Yes, exactly. Now here, I had a doubt. Okay, so generally in this is the regular definition of graphical, the initial definitions, right? Like edge,
Yes, sir.
vertex. Okay,
Uh-huh.
okay. So with the eccentricity concept, what exactly you have tried to explore here in this work?
Yeah.
I mean, what
So,
is the exact connection of the eccentricity here?
eccentricity here. So we have obtained the result, this one, no? That eccentricity is 2 if like E is not equal to 1, means the idempotent is not 1. And it is 1 if the identity, not identity is idempotent. If idempotent is 1, then we get 3. So this is a result which is like, which we get And then using this, we have not using this actually, it's like while proving the center only, we have to use this one then, eccentricity. We can show that this graph is having eccentricity 2 and 3. And
So
then it's
is there
actually,
something that eccentricity, you have defined a restriction on eccentricity? This is the eccentricity, we won't work beyond that, something like that?
no,
No?
sir. We have this finally, but the eccentricity is always 2 or 3 only for this graph, like always.
Okay.
Yeah, like I can, let me show you by example a little bit. Okay, I think this is like easy. Like for this one, no, idempotent is 1, right? So eccentricity here is 3, like 1, 2, and 3, because we take the farthest vertex from this vertex. So
Okay.
eccentricity is 3. But other, if the idempotent is not 1, like 4, 1, then eccentricity here is always 2. If we take with this one or with this one also, we go like this, and 2, then 2, yeah, 1, yes, sir. So like that.
Anybody has any other questions? Otherwise, we are done with that. So I think we can. Yeah, thank you, Diamond.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Nice
Thank you so much,
presentation.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Who is our next candidate, ma'am? 302.
Next one is Dango Folk. Yes.
Is the candidate present?
Is there any candidate? Dango Folk.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we move forward? Go for
Oh,
next candidate, sir.
yeah. Better we go for next candidate here.
Next one is Shivaji and Shailendra. Yes, Shivaji. Are you there?
No. Shivaji and Shailendra. Shivaji, Shailendra. It's not here. We will check with the next candidate also.
Then Zanul.
Zainul Abdin.
Zanul.
Zainul Abdin.
Zanul is also not there.
Yeah. So 3 of them, we are left with 3 presentation, and all 3 are apps not present here. I think we have to wait now, ma'am. I mean, may we know these candidates? Are you present here? Dengbo Folk or Shivaji Nagendra, Shailendra Deo,
And Zanul.
Zainul Abdin?
All three were absent.
Sir, I think we can wind up the session now. As per the conference committee decision, the presenter should be present for entire the session. So if they are not present so far, so we should not wait for them.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to the organizing committee of the
Thank you,
conference,
madam.
and thank you very much to Dr.
Thank you.
Pooja.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nirmal sir, and thank you, organizing team. Thank you so much.
Okay,
I'm
this
going to leave.
इसके स्टूडेंट वॉलंटियर कहाँ गए?
Hello, sir. Yes, sir.
Vikas,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
you can
I'm
make
here.
a closing note. You should make a closing note, na?
Okay, sir. Yeah, so we are very grateful to both sir and ma'am that despite having a busy schedule, they agreed to chair this session. Thank you very much, like sir and ma'am, for your kind support and sharing the